Well, for being the last Pac-12 game we ever get, it sure went out with a bang. Washington took down the Ducks 34-31, and they secured a spot in the college football playoff. The Huskies finished the season going 13-0. Meanwhile, the Ducks, they finished the year 11-2, with both of their losses coming to Washington by only 3 points. Now, I will say this before we get to the game and all that kind of stuff. I do think if there was some crazy epic scenario out there, Oregon could potentially be a playoff team. I think they showed they could hang with the big boys. They showed that Washington is their kryptonite, and I think the Ducks would fare well in the college football playoff. But we've never seen a two-loss team reach the playoff, and based on how games are likely going to go this weekend, I don't think there's any scenario in which the Ducks can somehow sneak their way in. But they played a hell of a game, and they showed they are one of the 5 to 6 best teams in all of college football. But let's get to Washington and this crazy win. Now, entering this matchup, the Huskies were actually a 9.5 to 10 point underdog, depending on which betting outlet you looked at. And honestly, I thought Oregon was going to cover that with ease. In a previous video, I talked about this matchup and how I thought Oregon would win by at least those 10 points. And the reason was, Oregon has looked like the better team most of the season. I mean, outside of that one loss to Washington a couple months ago, Oregon has dominated every game they play. Meanwhile, you look at Washington, they've really struggled since that Oregon game, and I didn't think they'd be able to hang with the Ducks this time around. But boy, was I wrong, and I guess everyone that set those betting lines, they were wrong as well, because not only did Washington cover the 9.5 points, they won this game outright. We'll start with Michael Penix Jr., who had an incredible game. He threw for over 300 yards with a passing touchdown. Now, I know his numbers aren't all that sexy. I mean, again, he only threw for 1 touchdown, had an interception, but he made the big plays when Washington needed the most, and he looked fantastic all night. I know he's probably not going to win the Heisman Trophy, as it's likely going to be going to Jaden Daniels, but Michael Penix Jr. should be receiving first place votes. I mean, he had one hell of a season, and Washington did finish 13-0. When the college football season began, I don't think many people had Washington finishing the season undefeated and going to the college football playoff. Now, if you watched my videos during the offseason, I actually was one of those people that said Washington could be a playoff team. I also said Michael Penix Jr. would be a Heisman finalist. Now, I'm not going to take all the credit there, but I was really high on this Washington team. So like I said, Jaden Daniels is probably going to win the Heisman Trophy, but Michael Penix Jr. deserves a lot of love and a lot of votes for the incredible season he had. And he was the MVP on the game that mattered most for the Huskies. Then you look at the rushing attack, and Dylan Johnson was just as good. He ran for 150 yards and had 2 rushing scores. For good measure, he also had a passing touchdown as well in this one. Overall, this was the Washington offense we've come to expect over the entire season. They've struggled over the last month or so, but they delivered one of their better performances of the entire season. The defense stepped up as well, as this looked like a really good defense tonight. I talked about it in a few videos this past week, but entering this game, a reason I was so high on Oregon was because of how good their defenses looked this entire season. But it was Washington's defense that proved to be the difference maker in this game. I know Oregon finished with 31 points and over 300 yards of offense, but that was really just because of a few big plays. I mean, outside of a couple of big chunks, Oregon couldn't really get anything going at any point. Bo Nix did all he could in this game, but he picked the worst possible time to have his worst game of the season. He finished the game completing 62% of his passes. Now, considering he entered this game completing nearly 80%, that's quite the drop-off. He also threw for 240 yards and had 3 passing touchdowns, but like I said earlier, a lot of those yards came on massive plays. He wasn't really able to consistently drive Oregon down the field and get them into scoring position. Like with Penix Jr., I do think Bo Nix deserves to get first place Heisman votes. I get it, Oregon lost this game, but I don't think the Heisman should have been decided from this game alone. I mean, it's a full season sample size, and Bo Nix was one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. Again, Jaden Daniels is going to win, and he would have my vote, but I see no reason why Bo Nix should not receive a number of first place votes as well. I mean, overall, this was just a disappointing performance from Oregon, because I really thought if they would have made it to the playoff, they would have given whoever they went up against a solid fight. I think they could have really gone toe-to-toe with teams like Michigan, Florida State, Georgia, or maybe Texas or Alabama. Now, unfortunately, their playoff chances are all but shot. So let's turn things over to Washington now. They're 13-0 on the season, and they're going to be a college football playoff team. As of right now, we don't know who exactly they're going to be going up against, but it looks like if all things go according to chalk, they're going to be playing Michigan in the first round of the college football playoff. I just saw a tweet come in that said the Wolverines would be a 5.5-point favorite over the Huskies, and if that's the case, I say you got to give me the Huskies with those 5.5 points. I mean, this is probably going to be the best offense that Michigan has faced all season, and it's not going to be close at all. And if Washington's defense can play like they did tonight, they could give the Michigan offense a lot of problems. Again, that matchup isn't set in stone, but if Michigan just wins tomorrow and if Georgia wins, that's probably going to be the game we get in the first round of the playoffs. Either way, I'm excited to see Washington in the college football playoff, and they're the first Pac-12 team to make the playoff. Yeah, since Washington made it, I think 7 years ago. I want to say that was 2016, the last time we saw them. So one hell of a season for the Huskies, one hell of a game, because again, this was an insane matchup. I thought Oregon was going to win this game with these, but Washington proved me wrong, and they've proved a lot of people wrong all season. The only thing I'm upset about is that I didn't get in on that Washington preseason action. I don't know what their odds were, but back in May and June when I was doing my preseason videos, I was so high on this Washington team because I thought Michael Penix Jr. and all of his wide receivers would give them one of the best offenses in all of college football. Sure, I believe they could go 13-0 and reach the college football playoff, but I clearly didn't believe enough as I didn't put money on them. So the dream season continues for Washington, and now we gotta wait about 4 weeks until we see them again in the college football playoff. So what are your thoughts on this crazy game between Oregon and Washington? Did you think Washington was gonna somehow pull off the upset, or did you think Oregon was eventually going to pull off the win late in this game? Also, how do you think Washington is going to do if they take on Michigan in the first round of the college football playoff? Do you think they have any chance of taking down the Wolverines, or do you think they're the team to beat and they can get by Michigan and advance to the national championship game? Now, wouldn't that be something if the national champion of the 2023 college football season is a Pac-12 team? The final season of the Pac-12 is when we finally get a national champion for the first time in nearly 20 years. Knowing college football and knowing the Pac-12 especially, that's definitely going to happen, and I would totally be okay with that. So yeah, whatever your thoughts are on the game and Washington in the playoff moving forward, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Tomorrow is going to be a very exciting day of college football. A lot of great games, a lot of matchups that are going to determine playoff spots, so definitely stay tuned on my channel for some videos on what happens tomorrow. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you love college football, this is definitely the place for you. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.